Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, I'm sorry we forgot to sing the separation song, but I'm going to read a little bit about Vikreshwar Pandit, whose disappearance day is today. Okay, let me just... okay, let's see. Okay. Boy. Okay, on this 30th day of June, 2025 in San Diego, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. But before we do, we'll be reading about Shri Vikreshwar Pandit, whose disappearance day is today. Once in the house of Srivas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sang while Vikreshwar Pandit danced in constant ecstasy for 72 hours. At that time, Lord Chaitanya said, Vikreshwar, I have only one wing like you, but if I had another, certainly I could fly in the sky. Expert at singing and dancing, Vikreshwar Pandit always pleased Lord Chaitanya with his service in the Navadvip Sankirtan parties, which he joined from the beginning. And also he pleased him with the dramas at Srivas Angam, Srivas's house, and the yearly Ratha Yatra at Jagannath Puri. Vrindavan Das Thakur has written, to awaken the sleeping souls in the age of Kali, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute the nectar of the holy name of Krishna. When he came, the kol, or mridanga, and kartals sounded like thundering clouds. Absorbed in moods of ecstatic love and shouting, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Sri Gauranga told everyone to chant the holy name of Krishna. Raising his golden arms to the sky, Lord Gaurhari would dance in ecstasy. At that time, Vikreshwar Pandit and others would dance with the Lord. This is from the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. By Vikreshwar's blessings, Devananda Pandit was freed from the Vaishnava aparad he committed against Srivas Pandit. Then Sri Chaitanya accepted Devananda Pandit as one of his own devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu commented on this incident. Krishna has made his home in the heart of Vakreshwar Pandit. As Krishna dances in his heart, so Vakreshwar Pandit himself dances. Whatever place Vakreshwar Pandit blesses with his association becomes a holy place of pilgrimage, more sacred than all the holy places. Certain great devotees, such as Shri Vakreshwar Pandit, Paramananda Puri, Sarup Damodar, Gadadhar, Jagadananda Pandit, Shankara, Raghunath Vaidya, and Raghunath Das, were associating with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the beginning of his pastimes in Navadvip. They also faithfully served the Lord when he moved to Nilachala Dham, Jagannath Puri. Vakreshwar Pandit established deities of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in Kashi Mishra's house next to the Gambhir in Jagannath Puri. Kavi Karnapur says Vakreshwar Pandit is an incarnation of Aniruddha of the Chaturvyuha. Vakreshwar Pandit initiated Gopal Guru Goswami and many others in Orissa. Dhyana Chandra, a disciple of Gopal Guru Goswami, says in his books that Vakreshwar Pandit is an incarnation of Tunga Vidya Sakhi, an expert singer and dancer serving as one of Srimati Radharani's Ashta Sakhis, 8 Sakhis. His samadhis in the 64 samadhis area. Vakreshwar Pandit ki jai. I have like 1 minute. I can tell you a little special relation I have with Vakreshwar Pandit. When I first read about him in the Adi Leela back in 1973, I said I read he's dancing for 72 hours straight. So at that time I was going out 3 hours every day doing Harinam. And I had been pretty athletic before I joined in 73. And so I said, maybe I'm going to try to do that, you know. But I'm going to need the right shoes. So at that, because all I had was floppies, you know, flip-flops. So 1973, maybe people don't notice, but the 60s bled into the 70s, and there was still plenty of hippies and people like that around. So we had a shoe room. It was a very popular temple. People would come on Sundays, and they had to check their shoes. They get a number, and then, you know, be able to claim them after the feast and everything. So, but I knew that some people came with shoes and left without shoes. So they accumulated some shoes in that shoe room. So I said, maybe I can find the proper sneakers that I can, so I can dance for 72 hours straight. So I looked in there, and they found a pair that just fit me perfectly. I said, this is Krishna's arrangement. He wants me to do this. So I didn't chant for 72 hours straight, but I did try to chant whenever, dance whenever I was out on Harinam. And that was the best shape I've ever been in. Okay, Vakreshwar Pandit ki jai. Now moving to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, and we're beginning on text 12. Does it say 12? No, 15, and read through to 19 where the first purport comes in. So I'll just chant 15 myself and read the translation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to Supreme Lord Krishna is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, text 15, I'll just read myself. Tasmad isha bhajantya me shreyas chindayasu vrita Vritashriyo Vritastanan Sapatnai Pahinak Pabo. Therefore, most gentle Lord, kindly favor your maidservant. So this is Mother Aditi speaking. And she's appealing to Kaśyapa, right, to give her a way to get all her sons back installed in the heavenly planets. We have now been deprived of our opulence and residence by our competitors, the demons. Kindly give us protection. Purport. Aditi, the mother of the demigods, appealed to Kaśyapa Muni to give the demigods protection. When we speak of the demigods, this also includes their mother. Parai vivasita saham magna vyasana sagade aishwaryam shir yashakstanam mritani papalayar mama. Aditi continues, the demons, our formidably powerful enemies, have taken away our opulence, our beauty, our fame, and even our residence. Indeed, we have now been exiled, and we are drowning in an ocean of trouble. Yatata nipunak sadho papadyeran mamatmajaha tatavadehi kalyanam dhya kalyana krittama. O best of sages, best of all those who grant auspicious benedictions, please consider our situation and bestow upon my sons the benedictions by which they can regain what they have lost. Then Sri Shuka comes in. Sri Shuka uvacha evam abhyartito ditya kastam ahasmayan iva aho maya balam vishno sneha baddhamidam jagat. Okay. Sukadeva Goswami continued, when Kaśyapa Muni was thus requested by Aditi, he slightly smiled. Alas, he said, how powerful is the illusory energy of the Lord Vishnu, by which the entire world is bound by affection. By affection for children. Purport. Kaśyapa Muni was surely sympathetic to his wife's affliction, yet he was surprised at how the whole world is influenced by affection. Kva Deho, Bhautiko, Natma, Kva, Chatma, Prakate, Paraha, Kasya, Ke, Pati, Putraja, Moha, Eva, Hikaranam, Kvadeho, Bhautiko, Natma, Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam kvadeho bhautiko natma kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam kvadeho bhautiko natma kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Kvadeho bhautiko natma Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Someone else? Kvadeho bhautiko natma Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Kvadeho bhautiko natma Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Kvadeho bhautiko natma Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Kvadeho bhautiko natma Kvachatma prakate paraha kasyake patiputraja moha eva hikaranam. Kva Where is Deha, this material body? Bhautikaha, made of 5 elements. Anatma, not the spirit soul. Kva, where is? Cha, also. Atma, the spirit soul. Prakatehi, to the material world. Paraha, transcendental. Kasya, of whom? Ke, who is? Pati, husband. Putra adyaha, or son, and so on. Moha, illusion. Eva, indeed. He, certainly. Karanam, cause. Okay. Translation. Kaśyapa Muni continued, what is this material body made of 5 elements? It is different from the spirit soul. Indeed, the spirit soul is completely different from the material elements from which the body is made. But because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as a husband or son. These illusory relationships are caused by misunderstanding. Purport. The spirit soul, Atma or Jiva, is certainly different from the body, which is a combination of 5 material elements. This is a simple fact, but it is not understood unless one is spiritually educated. Kaśyapa Muni met his wife Aditi in the heavenly planets, but the same misconception extends throughout the entire universe and is also here on earth. There are different grades of living entities, but all of them are more or less under the impression of the bodily conception of life. In other words, all living entities in this material world are more or less devoid of spiritual education. The Vedic civilization, however, is based on spiritual education, and spiritual education is the special basis on which the Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructed Arjuna to understand that the spirit soul is different from the body. All right, I'll say you all know this one. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumadang yauvanang jara tata dehantara prapti dhirastatanamuhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita 2:13. Unfortunately, this spiritual education is completely absent from modern human civilization. No one understands his real self-interest, which lies with the spirit soul, not with the material body. Education means spiritual education. To work hard in the bodily conception of life without spiritual education is to live like an animal. Nayam deho deha bhajang naloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujange. Bhagavatam 5.5.1. People are working so hard simply for bodily comforts without education regarding the spirit soul. Thus they are living in a very risky civilization, for it is a fact that the spirit soul has to transmigrate from one body to another. Tata dehantara prapti. Without spiritual education, people are kept in dark ignorance and do not know what will happen to them after the annihilation of the present body. They are working blindly, and blind leaders are directing them. Andaya tandaya rupani yamanas tepi shatantra manudamni buddha. Bhagavatam 7.5.31. A foolish person does not know that he is completely under the bondage of material nature, and that after death material nature will impose upon him a certain type of body which he will have to accept. He does not know that although in his present body he may be a very important man, he may next get the body of an animal or tree because of his ignorant activities in the modes of material nature. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to give the true light of spiritual existence to all living entities. This movement is not very difficult to understand, and people must take advantage of it, for it will save them from the risky life of irresponsibility. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is interesting because Aditi, of course, the mother of the demigods, she's heartbroken that her sons have been exiled. She can't access them. Who knows where they went? It doesn't say, but they're not in a very comfortable position, being evicted by the demons who became powerful because they got the blessings of the Brahmins. So she made this appeal, as we've heard in the last week or so. And Kaśyapa Muni, his first response is to be kind of critical. Says, oh, she's deeply in the bodily concept of life. She's identifying herself as the mother of all these demigods, these attractions. So that's what he's saying here. But he still will give her this payovrata, sacrifice to fulfill her desires. So she's going to perform this sacrifice, and there's plenty of meditation and worship of the Lord in that sacrifice. Of course, the center is that you only drink milk. It's called payo. Milk is payo. Milk for what is it, 7 days or 10 days or something like that. And there's many other things. So Kaśyapa is going to give her the process by which she can get the blessings of the Lord, and that her anxiety will be finished, because somehow or other they'll get back the kingdom, their abodes, and exile the demons. But here he's giving what he really thinks about it. He says, oh, she's completely in the material, bodily concept of life, identifying as the mother and all this and that. So this is one thing I was thinking about this pastime, is that there are various things that happen that seem to be counterintuitive. And the first one is how important Shukracharya is, because I was surprised when I read this years ago, and I found out who Ushana actually is. So I mentioned this once in a comment. This is, I think, text 37 or 47 in the 10th chapter, where Krishna is going through saying, of bodies of water, I'm the ocean, of this, I am basically the greatest of each category. And of scholars, learned sages, I am Ushana. Well, who's Ushana? Well, I found out that's Shukracharya. But Shukracharya plays the role of the the guru, who's really not a bona fide guru. Although apparently he told Bali, as he says when the whole pastime Vamanadev comes, that now you're telling me not to give any charity to this pilgrim here? You used to tell me that you should always do that, Yeah, but he's Vishnu, he's going to take everything. And then I think Prabhupada says in the commentary, yeah, and if he takes everything, I won't have a salary anymore myself, So you get this kind of a colored opinion of Shukracharya, and he's not, but Krishna identifies with him. So what I'm getting at is that things that seem to be, Aditi's totally kind of in the material, mode of motherhood. Oh, my children are gone, where are they? Like that. So he's describing it as the bodily concept of life. But as in other places, we'll find that motivation for material things can put you in a good position spiritually. And one of the most interesting aspects of that is Krishna's own preaching in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says one of the objects of knowledge, of the aspects of knowledge, listed in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. Right? So that means one should always see the pains and the difficulties of birth, old age, disease, and death. And how many times have we heard, if you listen to Prabhupada's lectures or read the purports, it comes up all the time. And this, indeed, this purport right here, or the one of the early ones we read, the short ones, he quotes Dehi nosmin yata dehe, right? Which is all about transmigration of the soul, even in this one body, trying to convince Arjuna that nobody dies, so no one's going to die. In one sense, no one's dying on the battlefield, but all the bodies are dying except you Pandavas. So, but we learn from the first verse of the Bhagavatam that desire simply for mukti is also a material desire. I want to be liberated. And the famous verse by Prahlad Maharaj, Prayena Deva Munayosa Vamukti Kama, Sva Vamukti Kama, just that phrase, having lust for their own mukti. So you can see why, because, oh, it's so much suffering. You know, birth, death, old age, and death. So I want to get out of suffering. And what Prahlad says in his verse is that, yeah, and they, for the most part, these learned sages, they don't care about anyone else. They want their own mukti. Oh, I'm going to go to the Himalayas, go to the jungle, be alone. Vijane, where there's no people. And he literally uses that phrase, svava mukti kama, lusty for their own liberation. So, but we find that, why does Krishna quote that then? Because this serves as an impetus to get on the path, to practice yoga, to practice discipline, and according to the Shastra, so that I can get free. But if you go to the right Shastra, you know, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then yes, mukti is there, but it's the desire for it is like the first step of getting you on the path to devotional service. And then eventually you give it up. Right? What does Lord Chaitanya teach? Nadanang, najanang, nasundarim. Not only does he want the usual things that people pray to the gods for, wealth, right? Good, nice wife, nadanang, najanang, followers. But he doesn't want even liberation. Remember, janmani, janmani shure. He implies that it's a conclusion. Birth after birth. When he sees birth after birth, then he's not going to think of getting liberation, right? So Lord Chaitanya is teaching us there what to pray for. Ultimately, is that we can pray, please, you know, get me out of this birth, old age, disease, and death. I'll do it, you know. Okay, chant, all right, let me chant Hare Krishna, you know. But if you chant Hare Krishna and you follow Lord Chaitanya, then after a certain point you'll say, heaven or hell, as long as I can serve Krishna, I'm satisfied, right? So there's no liberation, you see. Or birth after birth, let me just be your servant of your servant of your servants, isn't it? So this is a very interesting idea, is that your desires, the whole process of devotional service is an evolution of your desires, purification of your desires, right? It's a purification of our consciousness, and what causes us to do things is our desires. And for the most people, for the most part, especially Kali Yuga, 99.99% of the people are motivated by some material desire. Let me enjoy this, let me get free of this. Danger, right? Negative or positive, but all on the bodily concept life, self-centered. They're not thinking, oh, how can I please God? You know, that's very, very rare. But that's bhakti. So this whole pastime, what's going to be the result? So just looking ahead a little bit, you probably know the pastime. She performs the Payavrata ceremony very nicely, and the result of it is that Vamanadev takes birth. She gets an incarnation as a son, right? And they describe how everyone came and gave him, you know, little gifts and everything, you know, so he's all decked out as a Paka Brahmachari, you know. And of course he's a miniature. I hate to say he's a dwarf, you know. If you look up dwarf as a noun, it's someone who is misshapen and is like, you know, like this. That's not why he's a midget. He's miniature. So you can use dwarf as an adjective. He's a dwarf Brahmin. But anyway, so the idea is that he's small, but he's God. So he goes. That Bali is performing some big sacrifice, you know, and he goes and they see this nice brahmachari walking from far, you know, and he comes in and he begs for charity, and so Bali says, "Oh, whatever you want," you know. Because he's trained like that. He's a demon in name only. He's actually a great devotee. He becomes a Mahajan after this. And in fact, in the next Manvantara, he's Indra. I don't know if you know that. We're in the 7th Manvantara, in the 8th Manvantara, he gets the post. Now he's kind of cooling his heels in Rasatala, but he's got the company of Vamanadev, who took the role of his doorkeeper. It's very far out. So anyway, what's going to happen is that Shukracharya said, wait a minute, that's God. You know, don't offer him anything. He'll take everything from you. And Bali said, what are you talking about? You always trained me that we should give charity to the Lord, especially to the Brahmins. He's a Brahmin, the Lord, and dressed as a Brahmachari. So I reject you, right? Now, remember what happened when the demigods were disrespected Brahaspati or something. They lost all their power. So, and Shukracharya is a recognized Brahmin. He's Krishna identifies, you know. So he's lost the mercy of Shukracharya because he disobeyed him. So Vamanadev comes and he offers him anything, and he says, All I want is 3 steps of land. And Prabhupada says on the tape, but his soul is so small. Of course, he's referring to the soul of the feet. But anyway, so why didn't he ask for, a planet or something like that? So Vamanadev lectures a little. He said, no, if a Brahmin can't be satisfied with the minimal thing, then he's a Brahmin in name only or something like that. So just give me 3 steps of land, Okay. Boom, the first step of land, he covers the whole world. The second step, he covers the rest of the universe. And the third step, what am I going to do with my third step? He says, actually, with the second step, he pierces through the universe. And the causal ocean starts leaking in, getting some of the dust. That becomes the Ganges River. That's the origin of the Ganges. So then Brahmins, he expands, and now he asks Bali, a little bit surprised, needless to say, what happened. And he said, now what am I going to do with my third step? And this is where Bali becomes the Mahajan, right? Put it on my head. So see what happened. Aditi's desire just to get back the kingdom to her sons, motherly thing, really nothing transcendental about it. But she performs the Payavrata ceremony, which is worshiping God through this Payavrata. So, and then it results in this incarnation of Vamana, who miniature Brahman, brahmachari shape, and he goes and he takes everything from Bali. But Bali is not disturbed, even though he gets arrested by Vamanadev. Now, why did he arrest him? He did what you wanted. He gave you everything and everything, because he's going to give him a special place. So anyway, he gives him this. After all is done, he's arresting Brahmi, so they're going, and he takes him down to a Satala planet, which is one of the lower planets. So okay, this is you're in charge of this planet now, and I'm going to be your doorkeeper. Wow, have God as your doorkeeper. So what the point is that yes, the demigods get back their kingdom, but that's not really the moral of the story. The whole point is that we should give everything to Krishna. And even though it seems like that's going to be a real, then how will I pay the rent, or whatever. But that Krishna will provide. That faith is one of the aspects of Sharanagati, right? Goptat vevadanantata. Krishna will maintain and rakshishyati, and protect. See how that's a big surrender to have that. Even when you have nothing, you're saying, well, as long as you can keep doing my devotional service, because I know Krishna will protect and maintain. So that's one of the lessons here. And along the way, we're learning the basic principles of how we shouldn't identify with the body. This is the source of all of our bondage here in the material world, and that we should use this special material, this special human body, which is intelligence, where we can understand this philosophy and take up the process of devotional service under the guidance of a great acharya and teacher. So that's part of what the lesson is here. But Prabhupada gives, a basic philosophy here in this wonderful purport. And he quotes also from Rishabhdev. I think I've been pointing out that I've been listening to those lectures. When the 5th canto came out, and this chapter came out, Prabhupada was in India, and he had like the first, we always would print one volume and send it to him before all the main volumes came. So he's the only one who has it. So he gave a lecture on this verse, 551, Rishabhdev's first lesson of teaching to his sons, wherever he went. And there's literally at least 10 lectures on this one verse, Pretty important verse. Nayam deho dehabhajan loke krishtan kama narate vidbhajanye. Next words. Thank you, Balaram. That's why he's going to be a sannyasi. Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam shuddye jasma brahmasaukyam tvanantam. So here he's giving like such essential information. The first thing he says that someone who is born in the human form, if the Atma comes to the human form, and everyone eventually comes to that. Nayam deho dehabhajang niloke. You've taken a body among human beings. Nra means short for Nara, is human being. Such a human being should not kashtan, should not work like a dog, so we can enjoy like a hog. How about that? Kashtan kaman, for objects of the senses. Kashtan kaman artate bhujange, enjoying those pleasures which a hog could, a stool-eating hog will enjoy. He doesn't mince words. And so what's the alternative? Tapo divyam putraka, O sons, you have to embrace austerity, Prabhupada always says austerities and penances, which are divine, for divine purposes. We have just the opposite kind of austerities, which are inconceivable. They've been performed by Hiranyakashipu, we read fairly recently, in the 7th canto. No, not that kind of austerity. Or the kind of austerities that everyone performs just trying to hold down a job in this world, or escape from ice. That's another austerity. Hare Krishna. No, those are all material. Tapo divyam. What's the result of if it's a real transcendental austerity? Then it will result in purification of your existence. Putraka yena sattvam shuddhyed. Yena is by which, it's instrumental. It means by which sattvam shuddhyed, your existence will become purified. Now, what does that mean? It means that your whole consciousness will become purified. So you're no longer simply a slave to your material impulses to enjoy sense gratification. That's the opposite of purity. Purification means purification of your desires. So you don't want that anymore. I want to go back home, back to Godhead. You see? Or I want liberation from this world. And to do that, I have to give up my sense gratification, and get the higher taste. You follow Bhagavad Gita to, I always forget, 47, 49? No, 259, I think. Vishayavani vartante nirahara siddhehinak rasavarjam asopyasya param drishrana vartate. It's such a... You can realize the import of this verse by being a Hare Krishna, a serious Hare Krishna for a month or so or less. So it means by one's will, one can give up temporarily some vishya, alcohol, say. I know it's causing me harm, it's ruining my life, it's ruining my marriage, I'm going to become a teetotaler. So you give it up, you see. I'm not going to consume it anymore. Literally, don't eat it, don't consume it. But the taste will remain. You walk by a bar and you have to do all your willpower just not to walk in. Right? Somebody's a serious alcoholic. It's very easy to fall off the wagon, so to speak. That's because the desire is still in there, it's embedded. But ceasing by experience a higher taste, you remain fixed in consciousness. That higher taste means an evolution of your desire. This is the whole point, a purification of your heart, you see. And that's why we have these 4 regulative principles. Because if you're attached to all these other things, you can't really be attached to Krishna. You have to seriously vow, if you want to become a serious disciple, obviously, you have to vow to give up alcohol and all other intoxications, illicit sex, outside of marriage and even in marriage, except for having a child, which is very austere. And gambling, and of course meat eating. And I think, was it last night, or I've been meditating on this, how gambling is the most difficult one. What? I thought that was the easiest one. We had one fellow here, I'm not going to name any names, obviously. He was a stone cold gambling addict. Even though he would come every Sunday here, he was going to the Indian reservation gambling houses they had. It's very difficult. So anyway, why is that so difficult? Because why aren't we pure devotees right now? Because we let ourselves forget Krishna. We allow ourselves to forget Krishna. And that's the reenacting our original fall, right? Now it means that, of course, then if we're nice devotees who are regulated, we'll remember Krishna again, come to Mangalarti, chant Hare Krishna. But that forgetting Krishna is our fall down, and that we're gambling. That, well, okay, I'm forgetting Krishna now, but the next morning I'll wake up and go to Mangalarti, so I can do it. That's the gamble, that you won't die in between while you're forgetting Krishna. Isn't it? At any moment, it can happen. So that gambling has to be given up because it's too risky. And that's why we're here still. You know, some of us may have been devotees in previous life. You know, we made some progress, but we weren't serious enough. And we allowed ourselves to forget Krishna. That's why there's this wonderful 8 verses, Ashtaka, at the end of the Bhagavatam, practically at the very end, I think in the 12th or maybe in the 13th chapter of the 12th canto. And it's all about it's the great glorification of glorification. It's the glorification of Krishna Katha, hearing Krishna Katha, hearing and chanting. And you know what word it begins with? Sankirtan. Sankirtyamano Bhagavanananda Shrutana Bhava Vasanang Hipungsam Pravishya Chittam Vidanoti Shesham Hitata Moko Brahmavati Vata. Describing how those who are serious in hearing and chanting, Sankirtan, in association, Sankirtan, then Krishna enters within the heart. He's already there, but he becomes manifest to you, right? And he cleanses away every vestige of material desire. Just as the sun completely clears away the darkness, or you may say, well, the sun is up, but there's darkness in this cave here, you know, or a powerful wind will blow away the fog, even if it's gotten into the cave. So he gives 2 analogies there. And he goes back and forth. On the other hand, Misha Gadasta Asatira Sakata Nakatadeya Bhagavana Rokshaja. That those words that don't glorify Adhokshaja, Krishna, the Transcendental Lord, are false, damaging, illusionary, like that, you know, giving all this. And he goes on, and then he quotes these verses that anyone who studies the first canto will be familiar with. How about Tad Bhagavasargo Janataga Viplavo? Does it ring a bell? Right? Practically exactly the same words. But before he gives the other one, Nayad Vichas Chitta Badang Hare Yasho Jagat Pravitran Pagodita Kartid, and he changed a little Tadvankshakirtam, Nato Hangsa Sevatam, Yitrachatas Tattva Hisaravomalai. And this is a famous verse that says, those words, which may be very nicely composed, you know, but don't glorify Krishna, are like a pilgrimage for crows. In other words, as Ashram Maharaj never tires reminding us, a garbage heap. And the swan-like devotees don't go there, you know. They rather read Krishna book than, you know, other things, any material things, vibration. And then the next verse, again the same verse, the 5th chapter, 1st canto. I forget the exact verse, but Narada Muni is enlivening and inspiring Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam. And he says, this one's even more famous. Prabhupada put it in his preface, Tad Bhagavasargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pati Shlokam Abadhavatyapi Namanyanantatsi Yashon Kitanivak Shrinvanti Gayanti Gradanti Sarava. Those words which are meant to bring about a revolution in this world's misguided civilization, famous words of Prabhupada in his preface, are even though every verse may be miscomposed, as opposed to the other one, which is very nicely composed, but doesn't deal with Krishna, and the devotees reject it. But this, even though it's not so perfectly composed, the saints, the sincere devotees, they hear, chant it, and relish it, you know. So that's the difference. So the point is, he talks about hearing and chanting. Then the final verse, which I discovered from reading that biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. There's various sections in the book if you start reading it, and one of them is the verses that Bhaktisiddhanta would quote a lot. You know, it's very illuminating. Just like we have our Prabhupada favorite shlokas book, right? So one of them is the last verse of this series about hearing and chanting. And this is how it goes. Avismati Krishna Badara Vindayo Chinotya Buddhani Chashantanoti Sattvasya Shuddhim Padamatma Bhaktim Jnanam Chabhigyana Viraga Yuktam. Very nice verse. And I was the editor on that volume. You know, that was the 12th canto, finishing up the Bhagavatam. And we had, Avismati means remembrance. So for many years we had remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet, you know, which it certainly is. But it's more than just remembrance. It's never forgetting. Abhismati means not forgetting, you see? So there's a difference. Abhismati means constant remembrance. That's what Abhismati means. Whereas remembrance can come and go, you see? So it's very important. So he says constant remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet produces these benefits. Chinotya Badhani, it destroys everything inauspicious that may be threatening your life internally, externally, whatever. Chinoti bodily, chashang tanoti. Sham is how Shankara got his name. The first, that's Shiva's name, right? He who brings good fortune, welfare. Sham is everything positive. So Sham tanoti expands all your good fortune, spiritual good fortune in your life. So this is what never forgetting Krishna's lotus feet. Sham tanoti. Sattvasya shuddhim. Here again is the idea of purification of the consciousness of your existence. Sattvasya shuddhim, Paramatma bhaktim. Paramatma here not only means the Paramatma, but the Supreme Soul, Krishna. Bhaktim. It nourishes and increases your devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is characterized by jnana, knowledge, and vijnana, realized knowledge, and vairagya, detachment. So if you contemplate this is a great inducement to try to always remember Krishna. That's why we're enjoined periodically, chant 24 hours a day, right? Well, how can I do that when I'm sleeping, you know? But that's what we try, you know, the idea is to always remember, never forget. Because, after all, it's gambling. If you start forgetting, so that may be the point in which you die, and you have to come back again, join the ashram, do everything you did this time. So, that's what I have to say about this wonderful verse. The importance of accepting austerity for the purpose of increasing our remembrance of Krishna, and which is what human life is meant for. Otherwise, it's polished animal life, and in this age especially, we're likely to get the bodies of animals in our next life for sure. We do not want to waste this precious human form of life. Got something?
Yes.
Vijayamani.
Krishna. Thank you for a nice class.
Hare Krishna.
I'd like to ask a question about the verse you referenced. This is the one of Rishabhadev 551. I'd like to better understand tapo divyam. This it says in the translation, divine position, attain divine position of devotional service. And before that, you engage in penance in austerity. Is this speaking about this position of divine devotional service, position of pure devotional service? Because the devotional service itself is also, you can say, quite an austerity in the beginning. So what's the difference between these two?
The idea is that this is all in the context of devotional service. In other words, it may not be mentioned in this particular verse, but it's mentioned in a lot of subsequent verses, you know, that especially, okay, you want to be liberated? Priti niyavan maya vasudevi namuchate dehi yogena tavan. He says a few verses after this, 551, he says, without attaining love for me, Vasudev, this is Rishabhadev speaking, identifying himself as an incarnation, there's no question of being liberated from bonds of birth and death. So that's the whole idea of tapo divyam is austerities within the context of devotional service. That's what the implication is. And that will come very clear in subsequent verses. So that, you know, tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam, because only in that way will your existence become purified. Just as it says, abhismati, you know, to come to the point of always remembering Krishna, that's the end of a lot of austerity, hearing and chanting and serving and doing everything we do along the path of sadhana bhakti to get to the point of mature bhakti, right? Which is you know, characterized by constant remembrance of Krishna. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to, you know, perform some severe austerity that tortures the body. We're not into that. That's not what tapo divyam is all about. It's basically being, you know, following those practices that we're given in devotional service. Sometimes, you know, following the four regular principles is a big austerity. You know, especially at the beginning, you know, you're accustomed to all these things. You know, I like to say, getting up real early and coming to Mangalarti seems to be almost an impossible austerity for some people. We've had, you know, bhaktas come and go, you know, but that's necessary. So it's all in the context of what will further your devotional service, not beyond that, because then you're looking for something else. Those who wander, you know, in the Himalayas and practice these incredible austerities, the yogis, they want to get to cities. They're looking for the siddhis. But we're not looking for siddhis. We're looking simply to purify the heart and experience more and more the attraction for Krishna, the love for Krishna and his devotees and the service attitude. And lo and behold, we find that if you do it even imperfectly, those powerful forces that were pulling you, into sense gratification, become less and less and less until finally you can spite on it, as Prabhupada says, the famous verse. Spit on it. Spit on it. You're remembering how much fun you had here and there. Say, oh, that's no fun. I don't want to do that anymore. I've lived across the street from McDonald's now for 20 years. My apartment is right across from McDonald's. Now, I like to tell the story. I was conscious, and when McDonald's opened up in the 1960, 61 or something, I happened to be in a bowling league, and we would go every Saturday night, and suddenly the building came up, and it was McDonald's. They came out. Oh, now we can have, forgive me, a cheeseburger and fries before we do bowling every week, and we used to do it. I never thought there was anything wrong with it. But, I've lived across the street now. I mean, there's absolutely zero temptation to go over there. Whereas before I said, oh, McDonald's, that's good. So that's it's an illustration. But more importantly, one can truly renounce the intoxication and all illicit sex, anything you may have experienced. It just seems like a bad dream. It's not at all tempting anymore. Now, if you are not careful and you commit offenses against devotees and you lose your taste for association, and you weaken in devotional service, those old desires can rear their ugly head. And I've seen that amongst unfortunate devotees. Old habits can come up again. So that's the whole point of the austerity. The austerity becomes it can become a pleasure, Certainly the austerity of coming to Mangalarti and seeing the beautiful deities. What's the austerity there? It's just like what we do. So that's the way I understand it, Prabhu. Tapo Divyam, he's distinguishing it from those vicious, horrible austerities like Hiranyakashipu did, No, that's not what kind of austerities that devotees do. But we do practice those divine austerities that purify our existence and awaken our original Krishna consciousness. That's the best I can do with it. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay.
What is another characteristic or symptom of pure devotional service besides constant remembrance of Krishna?
Well, yeah, constant remembrance I mean, it's not just the remembrance, it's the eagerness to glorify the Lord and spread His glories. Prabhupada said that, this is from a lecture, famous lecture, that the first symptom of real love is that you want to see the person who you love glorified all over the world. So that also holds for the spiritual master. What are we doing when we're distributing Prabhupada's books? You're glorifying Prabhupada. It's his books, because what's in there, he's glorifying Krishna. So they all both come together. But that's we always have to remember that ultimately we want to be huge enjoyers. Now the so-called enjoyment is like a poison. It's enjoyable for a little bit, right? My favorite verse, he sings Boga, Dukkha Yonai Evate. Those pleasures that are due to contact of the senses with the sense objects. And don't forget, the mind is a sense. Just sitting there, watching the movie, where's the pleasure? It's in the mind. But it's just as entangling as any other sense pleasure, if not more. So the idea is that, as I always come back to this little phrase in the second canto, I may be the only one who memorized it. It's an excerpt that Prabhupada says from one of the Sandarbhas, although I haven't been able to find out which one. And Jiva Goswami has composed it. And it's in the purport to the famous verse, Akama sarva kamo va, moksha kama hudara diti vrena bhakti yogeni yajeta purusham param. Say, whether you are an akama is a noun. You're a person who is free of any lusty desires, material desires. Or you have all kinds of desires, sarva kamo va. Or you want moksha. That's also a lusty desire. Moksha kama, adharadi. If you're broad-minded, you'll perform intense, serious devotion to the Supreme Person, Krishna. You see? And in that purport, Prabhupada is describing what is an akama, a person who's free of material desires. So then he says, here is what devotional service is. Just the opposite of one who is full of all material desires. And it goes like this, the little phrase, Bhajaniya Paramapurusha Sukhamatra Swasukatvam. Because we are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is full of bliss, Anandamaya Vyasat. So we are also. Now we are foolishly trying to find that happiness by sense gratification, and life after life we fail. You're tied to this. Right? That's not a good bet. But still, our birthright is to be full of bliss all the time. So what this little phrase says, here's the perfection of bhakti, right here in these 12 syllables, whatever it is. Bhajaniya Paramapurusha, who is that? So Paramapurusha is Supreme Person, that's Krishna, who is worshipable by all. Every living entity, right, should be worshipped. Bhajaniya Paramapurusha. Sukha Matra, only his happiness. Matra means only in this case. Sukha Matra, Swasukatvam. Finding one's own happiness wholly and solely in the pleasure and happiness of the Lord. And doing what you can to please Him, to increase that pleasure. You see? What else are we doing? When the curtains open and we're there, right, and we bow down and we start chanting samsara prayers, Krishna is very, very pleased because you're glorifying His pure devotee. And then when we're chanting Hare Krishna, He's also pleased. Why is it a pleasure to chant Hare Krishna? Because it pleases Krishna. That's the whole idea. And the more purely we chant and with greatest attention, the more we'll experience the pleasure of it. You see, it's Krishna's pleasure. But that idea to take one's happiness only and solely in Krishna's happiness, that's what is described by Anyabhilasha Shunyam Jnana Karma Janavadam, the famous verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That Anyabhilasha Shunyam verse is just an expansion of this. I mean, I don't know if it was consciously done that way, but literally, it's a little expansion of this little phrase. So it's worth remembering. Because how can we, why is Krishna consciousness pleasurable? That wonderful festival we had, everyone throwing flowers, and then throwing them on, and getting blessed with flowers, and kirtan going on. Why was that such a wonderful, transcendental, pleasurable experience? Because Krishna was having a great time. And we're contributing to it. I was exhausted. I couldn't run around because I could do the kirtan I did, so I was blowing the conch. That was my contribution. But I was really enjoying watching Maharajas on the altar, throwing the flowers and all the devotees. This is about the 4th or 5th one I've been at, I remember when it first happened, I said, this is the greatest festival ever. I was waiting in the back, and I was watching the flowers and everyone getting flowers. So where is that, If someone walks in here, they've just been to a rave or something, and they walk in, they look through the windows and, what is that? That doesn't, the music doesn't sound like something I would do. Because they're in the lower modes, if you're, in those modes, you can't really appreciate, you have to be purified. That's the best I can do, and I think I've gone way over time. I'm getting in trouble with the authorities. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Hari Hari Bol. And if any of our guests happen to be here tonight, we have another class at 7:15, Bhagavad Gita. You're welcome.